Good morning. Hey, what's up? Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Jared Cast. My name is Jared Ankanan, and I am here to talk about some cool stuff and some movies. But normally I have a co host, co producer named Jared Lombardo, but he is off out into the world exploring Portugal and Spain, España, if you will. Uh, yeah, man. In Ibiza, everyone is a star, including Jared Lombardo. Um, and yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a cool day today. Basically, we're gonna be talking about 3,000 Years of Longing, the new George Miller film. He has not put out a film since the release of Mad Max Fury Road in 2015, one of my favorite movies of all time. George Miller himself is one of my favorite filmmakers of all time. He's always been innovative, he's always been super creative, he's always been at the top of acting like he's at the top of his game, no matter what he is. Even at his age, still hungry for higher, better, faster, cooler, more visually innovative cinema. And and so I'm very excited. I was very excited to watch 3,000 Years of Longing. I did not watch any trailers. I only looked at the poster, and that was it. That was all I needed. And I watched it. Let's see. So today is Sunday. I watched it Friday, so it's still pretty fresh in my mind. I've had some time to process it, but before I get into my review of the movie, for those who don't know the premise of the movie is about a jinn recalling his 3,000 years of his life to a master, to a scholar, a storytelling expert. And the movie flashes back throughout the jinn's life and throughout the storyteller's life as well, or the scholar's life as well. But I'm actually going to talk about my top 10 first. My top 10 is top 10 movies based in mythology. So there's a lot. There's been a lot, and when I say based on, I mean adapted from or appropriated from. There's a lot of there have been a lot of attempts to directly tell the stories that we know and love from Greek mythology or Chinese mythology or um, even Norse mythology, but a lot of them aren't very good. um, and I tried to expand it out a little bit more. Also, I did not include um, I did not include animated films because, like it would be too easy. Like Hercules, Road to El Dorado, How to Train Your Dragon 1, 2, and 3. Like all of those movies would completely annihilate the rest of the list, and I wouldn't get to talk about my favorite ones, some of my other favorite ones. So I decided to leave animation out, even though I love a lot of animated films. And this is a personal list. These are not what I think are the best mythological movies, and a lot of people love the old Clash of the Titans. A lot of people love the old Orpheus. I have not seen those movies, so I can't do a definitive best of all time type thing. But yeah, if the story is loosely based on or explicitly based on, I'm gonna include it on this list. And if it's live action, that also is a thing. But so for number 10, I'm gonna go with Aquaman. Yeah, man. Aquaman is about a superhero and a DC superhero played by Jason Momoa. Arthur Curry, half human, half Atlantean, decides to go back to his home kingdom of Atlantis. And yeah, the myth of Atlantis and the legend of Atlantis has, of course, been explored in many better movies. Probably, or not many, but like in one better movie called Atlantis, by Disney. And but so there haven't been a lot of great Atlantis movies. But what I love about Atlantis And what I love about James Wan's Atlantis is that it's just balls to the wall insane. And it actually looks cool. Like, it actually looks like a place where I would like to live, a place where I would like to study the ocean and fight underwater. Like, that sounds so much fun. Like, they actually made fighting underwater cool. Um and they do a good job of tying um the hero's personal journey to the mythology of the location of Atlantis itself. It is very cheesy. It is very generic. It is kind of ridiculous as a film, but that's kind of what James Wan likes to do when he goes into action. Like, look at, like, you're not supposed to take Furious 7 seriously, and you're not supposed to take this movie seriously either. So Atlantis, oh, sorry, no, so Aquaman is my number 10. Um, for those of you who already hate me, uh, I don't care. I don't care. I really don't. My number 9 is The Green Knight. I know a lot of people feel like this should be higher. While I do love this movie, I don't love it as much as other people because I think it could have been probably more original. But and I didn't like the meta stuff as much as everybody did. But what I did love is Dev Patel's performance. I love David Lowery's fleshing out of the world. I love the kind of mystical approach to the mystical, very not really explaining everything in Arthurian myth. I like that they just kind of dive headfirst into that world, and they kind of force you to find your footing. And I really appreciate that about the movie. I think the movie works well as an allegory for what makes a hero and for what makes a mythological hero a hero, about leaving a legacy. All that stuff, all that classic hero's journey stuff is present in The Green Knight, and I appreciate the movie for that. I also think that the Green Knight, it's the titular character of the Green Knight, is a really awesome mythological creature that has ties to various different things. You know, as a tie, as a literary motif, and as a figure that stands as a symbolic figure for environmentalism and conservation. And so, like an early Swamp Thing in English literature. And so I included, and I get a little bit of that from David Lowery in this movie, and so I appreciate that I got that from him. And so yeah, Green Knight is a great number 9 for this list. What the Green Knight did really well was it not just subverted it, but it added its own heart and its own soul into into itself as well. And you're gonna see that in pretty much every other movie on this list, not just in that one. Um, Speaking of which, I got The Northman for my number 8. I think The Northman is a very, very good movie. Came out just this year, kind of about the first Hamlet tale, the tale of Amleth, the Viking, and the Viking on a quest to avenge his father and his lost kingdom. And yeah, it's a very, very good movie. It's very, very intense, very, very interesting, kind of magical realist approach to Norse mythology. But I include, and even though it is kind of a magical realism revenge story, I still included it because they actually incorporate Odin into the story. They incorporate Odin's ravens into the story. They make it feel like, I get a sense that the characters in this film really do believe in these stories, and they let these stories sink underneath their skin, and shape who they are, and shape their decisions, and influence the words that they say to each other and to themselves. So The Northman is my number 8. Coming at number 7 is The Mummy. Yes, The Mummy is better than The Northman. Shut up. Yeah, man. Uh, you know, uh, it's the only Egyptian movie, live action movie that incorporates Egyptian mythology that I felt like deserved to be here. And it's just a really great movie. Like it's so much fun. It's so hilarious. It's so entertaining from start to finish. The movie never really gives you a break throughout the whole thing. Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz's breakout performances are absolutely incredible, absolutely amazing. I guess Brendan Fraser broke out before then, but still, he became a superstar after that, and one of the most successful movies ever made for a good reason. I love, love, love The Mummy. Um, my number 6 is a little bit looser. It's a little bit looser. It's an adaptation, a very loose adaptation of the Odyssey. That's right, folks. I'm going back, all the way back to episode 1 of the Jared cast, talking about Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? I love this movie. I think it's absolutely insane. It's so much fun. The Coen brothers kind of infusing the tale of Odysseus with bluegrass, uh, and it's so good, man. Bluegrass and gospel soundtrack. Um, uh, you got the Cyclops, you got the sirens, you got the flood, you got the return home, and going home in disguise with fake beards. Like all of the stuff that's in the Odyssey that you love, all the highlights are all in this fantastic, uh, just really funny movie about a guy who just wants to come home, about a lost soul stuck in enemy territory who wants to return home, and it's ultimately very beautiful. It also kind of matches like Ulysses' story in the film matches the original story of Odysseus. You know, someone who has to whose faith is restored in his at his most desperate hour, right? Athena helps Odysseus in the end of the Odyssey, and so yeah, it's very very good. I like it a lot. Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? One of my favorite Roger Deakins moments in his filmography. One of my favorite George Clooney performances. It was the movie that also introduced me to John Turturro. So I love it for that. I think it's a really, really impressive movie, and still holds up to this day. Next up, my top 5 is this one is a pretty close adaptation, actually, as far as like narrative beats go. But it's also very self-aware of the fact that it is a myth, and it is kind of recalling the tropes of the myth while it's playing out, and I think that's really really interesting and really really cool. But being postmodern, anybody can be postmodern, but not everybody can actually infuse postmodernism with heart and soul and texture and really really beautiful technicolor. Of course, I'm talking about Black Orpheus. I think this movie is so good. It's like one long ass music video. If you guys, for those of you younger folks who may not have seen it, if you saw Guava Island by Childish Gambino and Hiro Murai, it's basically it's kind of like that. Guava Island is like Black Orpheus, but just with Childish Gambino songs. And Black Orpheus, yeah, it's a musical based on the tale of Orpheus and Eurydice, about Orpheus's eventual fate and Eurydice's eventual fate and their tragic love story. It's so romantic. It's so beautiful. It's so like the music in it is so good. It's all Brazilian, by the way. It's a Brazilian take on the Greek myth, and so you get this really awesome Brazilian music. You get really fantastic dancing. You get just the most amazing sets and brilliant. Brilliant lighting, brilliant color, and brilliant use of the setting. The movie, even though a lot of it is about the costumes and a lot of it is about the beautiful people in it, They never stop showing off how beautiful the nature around them is. It's so fantastic. Black Orpheus. I believe the Criterion restoration is available on HBO Max. If you have not seen it yet, highly recommend Black Orpheus. Um, my number four is very loose. So this is even looser than Oh Brother Where Art Thou. It is The Lighthouse. This movie is, as far as I'm concerned, a freaking 10 out of 10, man. It's so good. It's to this day my favorite Robert Eggers film. Uh, and yeah, it's uh, kind of a what if tale or a strange tale. It's not really a myth, but it does take Proteus and Prometheus, two characters from Greek mythology, stuffs them in a room in a lighthouse together, and just see what happens. Like the movie just shows you what would happen if these characters were put together and driven insane. And yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. It plays like folklore. It plays like a campfire story almost, with really long monologues and beautiful chiaroscuro lighting, recalling a lot of old German expressionist arts, old German expressionist cinematography, and incorporating that into modern and postmodern filmmaking. It's also got beautiful, rich, and very intense performances by Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson, two of my favorite character actors today. The film does actually recall imagery like kind of um, Greco-Roman imagery of Prometheus and Proteus. And so, and the use of light and the use of the lighthouse specifically, I think is a very interesting take on those two characters from mythology. If you're familiar with Proteus, if you're familiar with Prometheus, they're very interesting literary figures, and the movie maximizes their potential as literary figures, um, in a really clever way and in a really unique way, and I love it. I think it's absolutely amazing. It's a brilliant take on it's a brilliant deconstruction of masculinity as well, and masculine relationships. Yeah, I love it. Um, my number three. Talk about deconstructing masculinity. Sheesh. Uh, I mean, what better way to go about deconstructing masculinity than through the tale of Oedipus Rex, in the film Old Boy. I love Old Boy. This was my introduction into Korean cinema, into the new Korean wave. This is actually a little bit after the new Korean wave in the late 90s, early 2000s, but I think Old Boy was 2006 or something like that. But Park Chan-wook is he's a master, and this movie kind of proved to Americans that he was a master, and that and kind of opened the door for a lot of us to see this really beautiful wave of excellence in this, like, just unabashed, uh, unhinged, disturbing and fulfilling and provocative cinema. And yeah, Old Boy is a very interesting take on the tale of Oedipus. It's kind of a spoiler that I told you it's the tale of Oedipus, but you should definitely watch it if you haven't. It is very disturbing. Some scenes are very hard to watch, so I don't recommend it for everybody. But it is absolutely fantastic all the way through. Choi Min Sik gives one of the best performances of that decade, and yeah, it's so, I don't know if over the top is a good word for it, but it's very, yeah, like unhinged is probably the best word for it. Like it's not tethered by any Hollywood tradition or Hollywood marketing fears and all these things that the cowardly producers, all the limits that they put on cinema. It's completely unhinged from all of that, and it's just its own thing that kind of exists and stood apart because of that. And so yeah, Old Boy has to be number three on this list. Absolutely. So the film so my number two is, believe it or not, even better. Pan's Labyrinth is my number two, even though this is more or less a dark fantasy, a Spanish dark fantasy, Spanish Mexican dark fantasy by Guillermo del Toro, one of the best to ever do it. He, he kind of took the character Pan, or created a monster based on Pan, and created a completely original story out of it. It's super super good. It's about childhood. It's about innocence. It's about violence. It's about our relationship to stories and storytelling, um, and purity versus evil, and good versus evil. It's everything that you need in a movie, all rolled into one. It's absolutely fantastic. I don't want to give anything away, but the faun in the film uh, is very different from a lot of fauns that you might see in adaptations of Greek mythology. Or movies influenced by Greek mythology. So this would be something that is not explicitly based on, but does appropriate imagery from Greek myths, and so I include it on this list because it's better than all the other movies that I previously mentioned. My number one is an even crazier appropriation, because it doesn't just appropriate all of Greek mythology, it appropriates very liberally from Norse mythology, and from biblical creation stories. Um, yeah, it's Lord of the Rings. I mean, I don't know what else could be better than Lord of the Rings: Return of the King, Two Towers, or The Fellowship of the Ring. I'm recording this on August 28th. The episode will of course be released um on the episode will be released on the 30th. But yeah, Tolkien really did build his own mythology out of the other mythologies, and it's better. Like, I'm reading the Silmarillion right now to prepare for the release of Rings of Power, which comes out on September 2nd. I'm not forcing myself to finish the Silmarillion, but it's so good. It's unbelievably good. And um and the Lord of the Rings as a book was fantastic. I absolutely love it, and the films are just so influential to me, to my generation. We watched this when we were children, and as adults, we still go to it and we still get that feeling. Man, it still works so well. I'm crying just thinking about some of the highlights of the movie, thinking about the Sam swimming going into the water even though he can't swim. I'm crying thinking about Boromir. I'm crying thinking about all these characters that I have grown to know and love, because even though there are all these grandiose commentaries on the world's mythology and on European mythology, Tolkien still injected his world with believable and real and authentic characters um, that just that just go beyond the archetypes that they evoke. They feel like friends, my friends. They feel like people that I can touch. And he didn't even just, it's interesting, right? Because um all these all these mythologies that we previously mentioned, Egyptian, Greek, Norse, and like a lot of these movies are taken from their original languages and translated into English. Um, but what's interesting about Tolkien's world, and about the world of Middle Earth, um, and the Lord of the Rings films, is that it started as an English story. And um, what's interesting about that is that an English speaking person created new mythological languages out of it. And these are legit languages. These are languages you can learn and speak and read and write in. Like, this is no joke. Like, he created, it's a mythology that appropriated other mythologies to create an even better one that's still going on to this day and still matters to millions of people to this day. Um, yeah, I can't get enough of the Lord of the Rings. It's a story that will stay with me for the rest of my life, and a story that mattered to me and that shaped me, and that uh, you know exists to me as a piece, not just a piece of the world's literary canon, but it exists to me as a piece of myself. And that's something that's really beautiful about the stories in 3,000 Years of Longing, by George Miller. That's maybe my best segue of all time, by the way. um, yeah, so 3,000 Years of Longing follows Tilda Swinton, who plays a loner scholar. She's very interested in myth and mythology and folklore and all these things. And she comes across a bottle. She opens up the bottle. Out spills a Jinn, and the Jinn says, "You have freed me from this bottle. You get 3 wishes." Right? The Jinn is played by Idris Elba. But what's interesting about this relationship between the Jinn and the receiver of the 3 wishes is that she genuinely doesn't think that she wants anything. She is what's interesting about these 2 characters is that they are both loners. They don't have um, they 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 they're both alone, and they both uh, rely on storytelling to medicate their loneliness, but they both arrived at their loneliness in completely different ways. However, at the same time, they're both it's kind of their own fault. They kind of pushed themselves into their loneliness, and so that's kind of what this movie is about. It's about 2 people who are incredibly lonely bringing themselves together, and I think that's something that is unique about George Miller's films. They introduce a lot of crazy concepts, a lot of very crazy, of a lot of very crazy visuals, and all of it is and it's always for a very simple purpose, right? Babe is a hero's story. It's a hero's journey. It's about um, you know coming home. It's about a hero trying to get home, and Babe, like the idea of like talking pigs and talking farm animals, like that's a hero's story, right? It's a simple hero story. Mad Max Fury Road, right? They drive, they turn around, they drive again, and then they come back. What else? Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior, is a Western. It's a cowboy Western. Happy Feet is a dancing, singing penguin musical about being yourself, but it's also about saving the environment. Yeah, it's simple stuff, but what I love and what I admire about George Miller is that even though his themes and his characterizations and his plots have always been very simple, what's awesome about them is that he has so much careful attention to detail and so much love and passion for the cinematic arts that each movie still feels fleshed out and beautiful, and just like a George Miller movie. um and so even though this movie, I think I went into it um you know pretty blind as to the story and as to what the story was going to be about, but I was still a little bit underwhelmed by things that happened in the 3rd act. I'll get into that later. But that being said, I still admire this movie. Even though I was disappointed by the overall result, I still walked away with an increased admiration for George Miller and for Tilda Swinton and for Idris Elba and a new actress that I will talk about later, who I will talk about later. Um, Yeah, so I gave 3000 Years of Longing a 7.7 out of 10. I think the movie is very, very good. I think it's I gave it 7.5, sorry, 7.5. I think it's very, very good. I think it's beautifully designed and beautifully shot. But I do think that I think it definitely needed like an extra 10 minutes. It was way too short, way, way too short. But we'll go back to Idris Elba and Tilda Swinton. Um, I think both actors are insanely impressive. You know, since the early 2000s, they've slowly just been killing it, killing it, killing it in side performances, in various supporting characters, and various things. I remember being introduced to Idris Elba and his, playing supporting characters in various like crime movies, and Tilda Swinton being the White Witch in Narnia. And now they're both the stars, the romantic leads in this film, and it was very, very exciting for me to see them interact together. And I think they're both at the top of their game, and this movie is no exception to their talent, man. It is, and to their brilliance, man. Like, honestly, like they really do shine, um and they feel like absolute professionals. They feel like they know and understand these characters. You know, Idris Elba's character is a Jinn, and he's just called Jinn. He's never given a name in the film. um and Tilda Swinton plays Alethea. I don't know if her name is supposed to is a reference to something. Maybe I'll look it up later. I'm sorry, I didn't do enough digging for that. But um, we could talk about Alethea first. Alethea has is like I said, is a loner. She's a scholar. She's an expert in storytelling, but she has kind of dug herself into this well of loneliness. Of just uh, she's kind of forced herself to be okay with being alone, and there's a cost to that. And we see that cost in her eyes. We see that cost in the way that she interacts with other people, in the way that she just looks out the window and looks at other couples in the end. um but yeah, Tilda Swinton really, you know she's never given a bad performance, in my opinion. I really, really loved her in this movie. um a lot of the movie she's kind of spent like listening and responding and commenting on the Jin's flashbacks, and her character's not given that much more to do. But in each story, she's trying to figure out both the Jin's motives and what her own heart's desire is, because she doesn't know. She's not really in tune with her own heart's desires, because she's so focused on on storytelling and stories as pieces of enjoyment. And so, as pieces of enjoyment and as tethers to her own emotions, a lot of her journey is about trying to find that connection to her heart's desires and figure out what her three wishes would be, right? And the Jinn is, of course, presenting the tales of his adventures. We see first his story dealing with Sheba, the Queen of Sheba, and her encounter with Solomon. We are also given like several commentaries on romance and love stories, and what makes a romantic lead tick. Why would someone find hope and find love, or try to find hope and try to find love after being burned so many times? That's kind of the question of the Jin's story arc throughout. The other big question that's kind of overall, the other big question that's like presented as an overall thing is, what is real, what is not real, does it matter? And we see that a lot in the Jin storytelling. Um, a lot of what he says to Alethea contradicts what Alethea already knows about history, and what she knows about storytelling, and what she knows about these legends and folklore and myths. And this movie, I think, Um, I think part of the reason why they do that is, not just to make an entertaining movie and kind of surprise us as an audience. I think another reason that it does that is that the film does that is to show us that, the limits of human knowledge and the limits of uh, academia, especially when it comes to the power to storytelling and truth. You know, is a scholar's word more truthful than a Jin's personal experience, right? The movie presents us with that question over and over and over again, and kind of forces us to maybe choose the experience, and choose what we see and what we hear and what we know to be true from our, not just from our memory, but from the way that memory shaped us, and trying to become self-aware of that memory. And that's ultimately Alethea's journey. She does reach that at the end. She writes the story 3,000 Years of Longing. We're introduced to the story through her narration in the beginning, and we find out later on that the narration was her writing in a book, in a park, waiting for the Jinn to return to her after they part ways. She has fully embraced that that idea, that self realization that comes from um, treasuring a moment in time with someone, and treasuring a desire for someone, treasuring loneliness with someone, and treasuring that friendship. And yeah, it's very, very good. Um, Obviously, the movie says it in a much more eloquent way than I could. My only problem with that is that it's very, very quick. Like, to me, it felt very, very quick. Especially because the movie took so much time and so much effort to show us to characterize the Jinn, and characterize Alethea through the Jinn's stories. It's very, very. It took a long time to get through those stories, and I like that. I like that they took their time with each and every single of the Jinn's tales. But the tale of the Jinn and Alethea as a couple, as a duo, was very, very short, I feel like. And I wish maybe the second wish was that she traveled with him or something like that. That he took her all over the world. I think that would have been better. Like, even if they show us like a quick, even if they show us not, necessarily a montage, but like, just give me something that shows what this relationship is like. Give me more to show me what this relationship is like. You don't have to say at the end, like, oh yes, we loved each other. Tell me, like, show me, let me experience it. Let me grow to appreciate them, so that the pain of them separating feels more potent. And because they didn't take that time, it didn't feel that potent. I was like, yeah, okay, set him free, go. But I didn't feel any conflict. I didn't feel her conflict about that. I didn't feel his conflict about leaving, and I didn't feel any the push and pull that these characters say they feel this for each other, but I don't see it. I don't. It doesn't sink into my bones. It doesn't sink into my heart the way the rest of the movie did. And so I was left kind of disappointed by the end. But that being said, it's still uh, I still walked away appreciating the movie's originality, in terms of um, not in terms of story structure, but in terms of like design. So many beautiful, like, uh, you know um, notes that they've taken from like Egyptian, from ancient Middle Eastern, from Turkish, from all these different cultures that are kind of fused together in this really beautiful tapestry of color and composition. There's some South Asian influence that I see in the design, in the costume design as well, in some of the sequences. And that's especially apparent in the Jin's adventures in Turkey. Um, yeah, man. or the Ottoman Empire. And yeah, it's very, very good, very, very interesting. And I found myself captured the by the costumes and by the movement of the characters in the screen. I also admired the fact that they let everybody speak in their own language, and they kind of just let us all figure it out. Um, I also like the way the magic was shown. Sandy look whenever the Jinn would create something or move something or push something out. There's also the story of Zephyr, the the genius that the Jinn falls in love with, and who traps him in the first glass bottle, or the last glass bottle. Um, yeah, it's very, very good, very, very beautiful. When Zephyr finally gets visions of these mathematical equations, and you see them like in her head, kind of like in The Hangover, but like good. It looks really beautiful and really interesting and really cool. Which, by the way, Burcu Golgadar, a Turkish actress who played Zephyr, very, very excellent. I thought she was gorgeous. I thought she was, even though she's never even given subtitles, uh, I still found myself like moved by this character and moved by this actress's performance. So shout out Miss Golgadar. Yeah, man. Other than that, 3,000 Years of Longing is just really, really. It's a beautiful piece of cinema. I definitely recommend it for the art house crowd. I also, think the movie has a couple deep flaws in terms of pacing near the end and storytelling near the end. But that being said, they very, very clearly put a lot of passion, a lot of really interesting. And oh, by the way, Junkie XL, beautiful score, Junkie XL. I love it. Thank you. Yeah. So shout out 3,000 Years of Longing. And yeah. We love you. Goodbye.
Let's go.
What a lovely day!
Andy, there's a whole world out there. Jump in.
Can you dig it?
Yeah.
You must always pay strict attention.
I was just completely enamored by it the entire time.
Dude, he did not have to go that hard.
I know, man. Isn't it wild?
The Jared Cast.